This is the original building that was on this property, which is built around 1760 or 70 in that time. And they said that the people would build a building like this cabin and have a wagon and live off the building and the wagon until they could build a bigger house to live in. And they said they might live in this in 5 years, you know, till they had enough time and enough material and all. They had to clear farmland and everything else. So this building was used for an outbuilding later, for a smokehouse, for a slave cabin, just storage, and was right behind. They built the newer house in front of it and used it for the kitchen to the newer house for a few years. It's built out of, it looks like oak logs with a little pine around the top, and it's been sided over probably in the early 1900s. This house was built in about the mid-1850s by a family that moved down here with four or five almost adult children built it. And originally it was only 2 rooms with a loft. And they had a stairway, went up, and they slept in the loft, and the other 2 rooms was the living room, like in the old house there was the kitchen out behind it. And then later, they built these other 2 rooms on the side in the 1880s or 90s, and then the 2 small rooms on the back were added during the late 20s or 30s in the Depression, and they're built as cheap as you could build a room and it hold up. There was another house in between. There was one built with this house, but it was gone at that time, or it burned down or something. But they built that house, and they had the records where this property was sold, and it said there was a cabin and a sawmill and something else on the property. And we said the sawmill probably pulled off of water and was in the stream down at the foot of the hill. But they said they never saw a sign of a sawmill or anything around here. That family was the Spratts, and they married Leonard Greer, one of the daughters, and it stayed in that family until they died about 1933 or 34. And they said that Leonard Greer and Alice Spratt were married, and she had a sister that lived with them. She lived in Frank's little room. They said that's why it was built there. That was the one that the sister lived in. Right. And they said all 3 of them died in the 30s, and then the house was sold. And they also built a house over there on the other hill that the Fords lived in, because they were out here by themselves, and they said that there was nobody out here, so they built that house to have somebody to be near them in case something happened when they were older. It was built in the early 1900s. But this property was purchased by the Williams family in around 1948 or 49, and before that it belonged to the Blue family. And one of the Williams daughters worked with Gladys Blue and found out this place was going to be for sale. And before that, it had belonged to an Eckerd family, 2 or 3 people before they bought it. And when they bought it, they lived on Garrison Road, which is about a mile or 2 up the road. And when their father died, they said this place didn't have enough land to work. It was too small for make a farm. And so they just went ahead and moved over when he died and been here ever since. And they moved around 1950 or 51.